Good evening, boys and girls. Tonight we are going to be answering the question of how to multiply a fraction by a whole number using models. So you can see that I have some models here that I've taken pictures of and included in this piece. So we are going to use the models, and then we will also look at the algorithm that you would work with. So it can sound kind of freaky to think about, ooh, I've got to multiply fractions and whole numbers, but it's really a pretty simple concept. So let's get started. You can see that I have some wholes and some fractions here, and here is our question. Doris lives 1/4 of a mile from school. If she walks to and from school each day, how far does she walk during a school week? So in order to know how many times that is, if you think about it, when you walk to school, you do that 5 times. When you walk home, you do that 5 times. So you end up with a total of 10 1/4 miles. So you can see that I have here a model of 10 1/4 lined up. And then I have 2 holes lined up over the top of the 1/4 so that you can see how the models help us put this in simplest form. So we're going to start with understanding that if we have 10 1/4, we want to know how many that is, and that's what this looks like, 10 times 1/4. And it's really pretty simple. You just multiply the 10 times the numerator, because the 1/4 means you have 1 out of 4, correct? And you have 10 of those, so you would multiply 10 times 1, which equals 10, and we keep our our denominator the same as 4. Now we have an improper fraction, 10/4, and we learned last week what we need to do with an improper fraction. We have a couple of different ways that we can simplify that. The first one we can do is divide 10 divided by 4, which gives us 2. That's our whole number. So we know we're going to have a whole number 2. 2 times 4 is 8. Do our subtraction. We have 2 left, and that becomes our new numerator. So we have 2 and 2/4. And we all recognize that 2 is half of 4, so that needs to be simplified down into 2 and 1/2. That's one way to do that. Another way is for us to use our actual models, and we have our 1 whole we can put over the top of 4 of our 4/4. That equals our 1 whole. And then we have a second whole that we have lined up over the top of 4/4. So that gives us our second whole number. And then you can see we have these 2 1/4 left over here. And so that's 2/4, which is equivalent to 1/2. Okay? And I could go get the 1/2 fraction piece and put underneath there and make sure that I have that equivalent, but I know from my benchmark fractions that when my numerator is half of my denominator, it equals 1/2. Now, I told you there was another way that we have learned to do simplifying of improper fractions into mixed numbers, and we'll look at that on the second slide. We started with 10/4, or actually I guess we ended with 10/4. Another way is to subtract whole numbers, and 4 over 4 is a whole, correct? So if I do that, then 10 minus 4 is 6. I have 6/4. I can subtract another 4/4. That then leaves me with my 2/4, and I have no other, I can't get another group of 4/4 out of there. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to circle how many wholes I had. That was 1, 2. So there's my 2 and 2/4. And again, 2/4 needs to be simplified down into 2 and 1/2. Pretty simple, right? So let's look at another problem. If we go on to another problem and we ask ourselves, what about if we look at that in another way and we say that each day she walks 2/4 of a mile, and she would do that 5 times. So 2/4 times 5. Notice that I put the 5 after it this time. Doesn't matter. Order does not matter. I did that on purpose so you could see that. Again, we have 5 sets of that 2/4. So 5 times 2 is 10. 10/4. And again, we're going to end up with doing the same improper fraction to a mixed number. 10 divided by 4 is 2. Subtract our 8, and we have 2 2/4. Whoops. Sorry about that mess. And then that equals 2 1/2. So another way to look at that, same kind of problem, end up with the same improper fraction that we make into a mixed number. I want to show you one more way with that 5 times 2/4 and show you it as an algebraic equation. 5 times 2/4 equals 5 times parentheses 2 times 1/4, because this in parentheses is essentially what 2/4 is, correct? We have learned that on Wednesday in our lesson. Excuse me. So then in algebra, you want to put like amounts together. So we have 5 as a whole number, we have 2 as a whole number. So we're going to change our parentheses, and we are going to do 5 times 2. This is the associative property of multiplication, isn't it? And 5 times 2 times 1/4, because we want to put our like numbers together. 5 times 2 equals 10 times 1/4, and we're back to what we started with, and ending up with 10/4, or 2 2/4, which equals 2 1/2. Okay. Okay, we're going to do this one more time, boys and girls, and you can see that I have taken a picture off of the internet of a Hershey candy bar. Kind of makes you hungry, doesn't it? And our problem is going to be 5 times 2, and we have a total of 20 in here. So 2/20. So that means that I would be taking, I am taking this piece, the third set, the fourth set, and the fifth set of 2/20. And then I'm going to multiply, and again, I'm going to multiply my numerators because 2/20 is my fraction, and I have 5 of those. So I'm going to multiply 5 times 2, and that equals 10, and I end up with 10/20. And as you can see by my drawing on my model here, that's exactly half of the candy bar. So 10/20 reduces down to 1/2. And remember, when we have a numerator and denominator and they both end in zeros, you can simply take off those zeros and you end up with your simplest fraction if the numerator is the greatest common factor of also the denominator, or that there is not another greatest common factor that goes into both of those. I didn't say that very well. But that will help you get started on simplifying. So 5 times 2/20 equals 10/20, which equals 1/2. And you can see by our model here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2/20, and that is, if we outline that 1/2 in this blue, you can see that 10/20 equals 1/2. Have a great night. Maybe some of you will get to have a piece of chocolate tonight.